Welcome to Cocktails and Coaching, everybody. So it's July 28th, I think, today. And so happy to have Joan and Midge with me and anybody else who may join us. Excuse me. So I had a thought of something to talk about tonight, but does anybody else, like Joan, do you have anything going on you would love to, get some coaching on or hear me talk about, or anything up for you, Midge? Like, anybody have just something happening going on that we should talk about tonight?
I don't think so. I'm going to just, I'm just going to pause my video. I'm going to grab my stand so I can put my.
For sure.
Yeah. And
we won't go forever, but get your stand and be comfy, because it's funny. The topic I was actually thinking about tonight is a little uncharacteristic, maybe seeming for me, and things that we typically talk about. But I had such a powerful session today with a client around anger. And anger's been such a challenge for me in my life. I mean, I grew up in a family, and Midge, I don't know if you can relate to this with your, religious upbringing, and Joan, I don't know if you can relate to it, but some people can, I know. I was raised in a family and in really a religious environment, culture, where anger was not okay. Like, that was bad. Like, we just weren't, I would get in trouble if I got mad at somebody as a kid. I mean, not to mention, forget the whole concept of like talking back to your parents or something. I mean, there's talking back that is rude, that, okay, that's not great. But just to disagree, like, I couldn't disagree with anybody. It was very much, excuse me, hold on.
Yeah, so while you're taking a drink, my question would be about that. Was that because of did they frame it in a religious way, or that's just the way, so you weren't God wasn't pleased with you if you were angry?
Yeah, yes, there was some of that in a real overt way. Like, so the questioning thing or disagreeing was always associated with doubting Thomas.
He's my twin.
Yeah, to give you that biblical reference. And of course, he was at least, again, in the distorted, abusive, religious, but very common and well known. I mean, I went to a enormous Baptist church in San Diego. I mean, I'm not in some little cult of 20 people. I'm in an enormous organization, and of course, Thomas was the worst disciple. Well, Judas. Okay, Judas was the worst. Yeah. And then Thomas, because he doubted, right? So, like, who wants to be that, And so, and then, of course, it was just my mother and her insecurities and, all the things that had nothing to do with religion. And she was, my mother was raised by a very abusive, angry alcoholic father. And then her mother was either, like some days super angry also, and an alcoholic when my mom was a kid. By the time I came along, my grandmother wasn't drinking anymore, but she was either being the same, matching him, or she was the pathetic victim. So that's what my mom grew up with. So of course she's not going to have any comfort with anger. And the only way she's seen it is in awful, distorted ways, and so she didn't have any way to model to us. And I did it to my kid. I mean, we laugh about it today, like how I raised my kid, because I've been married a very conflict avoidant person, no big surprise, and so we just avoided conflict for 16 years, and then we got divorced. It was like the amount of time from when it was January, we had this big blow up fight. It was Super Bowl Sunday, back when Super Bowl was in January. And April, by the middle of April, he moved out. Like, just a few months of conflict. And even though he was 100% religiously opposed to divorce, he moved out of the house.
Oh, wow.
Because he couldn't take it. And then, of course, he just wanted to come back and was shaming me and da-da-da. But whatever, I just, once he was out, then it was easy enough to keep him out. But anyway, so I had no model for it. I wasn't able to teach it to my kids, but thankfully, as I began to heal myself and work through my stuff, I did a lot of that. I'll kind of say like out loud, like my kids observed. I mean, of course, a lot of stuff they didn't know was going on too, but I was pretty transparent about all my, through the years, my own personal growth. So they started figuring it out a lot sooner than I did. But this client, what was happening with this client that I had today was what has happened to me so many times. And I think that a lot of people can relate to, which is that somebody does something to us that is an injustice, I'll say. Like, to me, anger in its healthy form, anger is a supernatural, wonderful response. Hold on, my screens all just went black. Did you guys lose me?
Nope, we're all good.
All right. Whoa. I have two monitors here and everything just went black. Anyway.
Oh no.
A super healthy response to somebody violating, some kind of boundary or doing some sort of injustice. So it may not be to me. I may be seeing it happening to somebody else, reading about it happening to somebody else. And I respond in anger because that's exactly the appropriate response. Somebody's being hurt. Somebody's being taken advantage of. Somebody's being bullied. Somebody's, or I'm having that on me, perpetrated on me, so to speak. So it took me a long time to get here, but now I get that. But what happens so often is that somebody has somebody do something to them that is an injustice, and they get really angry, and then they blame them. They think they've done something wrong by being angry. And depending on who that was that pissed them off to begin with, like in a relationship, like me with my husbands, they would do something that was actually emotionally abusive to me. And if I said, once I got to the point where at least I could say, oh, wait a minute, I don't like that. I don't like what you just said. I don't want to be treated that way, whatever. Then they would turn it on me and say it was my problem. And then if I got mad, then it's just all about me being mad, right? Like, once you get mad, it's so easy for the person who's really I'm going to say abuser, even if there's spectrums there, right? So anywhere from small to big. Once we get mad, it's so easy for them to turn the attention on our anger, which then fuels the thought of I've done something wrong by being mad. So now I'm to blame too, right? It's not just that he did this. I'm just saying he, because I am heterosexual. So I think in romance, I think of men. But it's not a gender issue. So it gets all the attention off of whatever he's done and onto me, as if my being mad was really the problem. Because of course to him, my being mad is the problem. He just wants me to take it and keep my mouth shut, But I see that so much with clients where when I'm hearing their story and they're like, I just lost it. I was so mad. I'm like, well, of course you fucking did. Because that was terrible. What they did deserved you losing it, And so I just really wanted to get that kind of out in the open, because it isn't something I talk about a lot. I don't think I'm purposely avoiding it, but of course now I'm checking myself. Maybe I should do a whole podcast on anger, because it has such a rightful place, and we cannot allow others to turn our anger against us when we're standing up for a boundary or a truth of our own. Does that resonate with you guys? And tell me your experience with that.
Yeah, it definitely does with me, Brenda. And I think with one of the reasons that you hear someone say, well, I just lost it, is because we've put it off too long. We've not responded and not responded, right? Over and over. And so that when we finally do, we do actually respond kind of inappropriately,
Sure.
maybe to that situation, or or just in a way that's not really helpful. The anger is fine. It's the way we sometimes do it, because for me, it's because I should have done it at the first step, not at step 10, right?
Oh, you make such a great point. So true, because then it builds. And then sometimes we do end up turning it on ourselves too. Like we may in fact be, inappropriate or overdoing it with the other person. But then sometimes we also overdo it on ourselves, and we'll be punishing ourselves and hurting ourselves with our own anger from various different angles. And it gets self-abusive when, if we could have handled it, set the boundaries, said no, whatever the case may be, when it happened, none of the rest of that stuff would have, it wouldn't have built up. It would have been handled. Yeah.
For me, my anger comes out in different ways. Like, it's not like that's kind of a situation, but if in times where I may feel fearful, not because I'm being attacked, but fearful in a situation where I'm not sure of, or if I feel inadequate, if I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know I don't know what to do, I can get really angry. I've always just figured that it's a cover up for my smallness, my vulnerability. My anger comes out, and that's when I get self-abusive, because it is way over the top for what was going on. But as a child, you didn't have emotions. If you said I felt that way, they're not, no, you don't. Oh, well, I'm glad somebody's better than me. Okay, fine. So I remembered as a kid, because I couldn't have just my emotions, I would either go from none to blasting it out. I never saw any kind of a role model to show me how to have that progression of anything, or how to be in the right kind of way. So even now, I'm always having to check myself and to figure out, okay, I'm starting to feel this explosion about where am I at? And I can finally now start to talk myself through it, but it's such ingrained now that it's really hard to stop it, because it's the way my pattern had always been. And we were talking about how we're too old to not get this right, because we're, before you came on, Joe, we were like, we got to hurry.
I know. How much more time do you want to waste doing this, right?
It is so true. I don't want to waste any more time. And I'm not going to say I've got this.
I don't want to come back and do the same work.
Yeah, I don't want to come back
and do the same work. Oh, I'm here again.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And, I would never want to make it sound like I've got this down at this point. I don't at all. I still have to really get, really be self-aware and get really conscious with myself when I'm feeling anger, or when a lot of times I don't even realize what it is, kind of like what you're saying, Mitch.
Exactly.
I'm so used to not letting myself feel it. But I start noticing I've got some kind of unrest, or little thing. Here, two things that happen for me. This is really funny. I start dropping things, like just like I have a pen in my hand and just like or I knock something. Like I just get like tactically clumsy or something.
Interesting.
Or I'm just getting super annoyed at, the dumbest little things that just like nothing, right? Or I'm in public and every person around me that is a stranger is somehow irritating to me, and even though we're not engaging, right? I'm walking through Walmart and every person there I want to kill, that I'm like, okay, something's going on, and then, I have to go back and say, okay, so I'm probably mad about something that I am avoiding. I've not even allowed myself to realize I'm mad. Something I've done, something someone else has done, something I've been exposed to. I just have to start going back and, find that trigger. What was it that made me mad? And then looking at it and asking that, like, is this about an injustice or something that's unfair, or a boundary that needs to be set? Or am I mad because it's more like it pushed my own buttons of insecurity,
Right.
I think we can get mad there too, or it's a very similar, feeling that I'll call mad or angry. And that usually gets projected on another person. The other person's done something wrong, but what it really is that it just pushed an insecurity button in myself. And so then that work is, okay, whatever, mad isn't really the thing. I need to accept that it's showing me. I mean, so then the mad becomes the tool for me to see that insecurity in myself, so I can work with that instead of being distracted by the anger at the other person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Just today, Brenda, I had a sort of a realization along those lines. I was feeling just overwhelmed, and I recognized I had a lot of things that just I wanted to do today. And then my husband asked me to do one thing this evening, and he asked me that earlier today, and I realized how many times I probably reacted in anger to him asking me something when I really was just overwhelmed. And I stopped and I thought, and I said no, and I'm getting really good at it. And I said, no, I can't do that. And it's because, and I explained, but you don't always I know you don't have to explain, but I was sort of to myself, oh no, that's the straw that's going to break the camel's back today. I can't. I have this, and this. So
yeah,
I can't do that. And I realized that I've felt that way many times and reacted in anger instead, by saying, why you just can't expect me to do that. Like, that's just, when really what it is just too much.
Yes.
Right. So, one thing too many.
That's such a great, and I love, let's combine overwhelm with it, because those two are so, like little kissing cousins or something. And I think overwhelm, you guys tell me please feel free to disagree. Okay. I'm beginning to think of overwhelm as a bullshit word that means one of two things. I need to set a boundary, or more than one, that I'm not setting and I'm avoiding those. Or again, I'm going to use the word insecure for just an overarching word. I'm feeling insecure about something, or nervous about I'm getting outside my comfort zone, whatever. And I don't really like the idea of that. And instead of dealing with that, I'm just so overwhelmed, right? Like, overwhelmed is getting to be a super culturally just like, oh yeah, oh honey, oh baby, and then maybe I'll even get some sympathy, because rightly so and innocently so, from the pandemic, I mean, we've just all been through so much shit in the last 18 months or so.
Right.
Like, nobody escaped, right?
No.
So I get how overwhelm is just an easy word to call all that. But when it happens to me in the I don't know, I've been thinking about this for several months. I don't know how long. I'm like, okay, it's because I didn't say no to something I needed to say no to, or I'm avoiding something that I just am nervous about, intimidated by, whatever. And an overwhelm is like the noble cause that I can try to get away from it all with.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that happens when we're not intentional. Like, we have so much going on, and it is so much, and then we're not intentional about each thing that we might need to address. Like, we just let things go. When you were talking about dropping things, it's like almost a detachment, that you lose the sense of what's in your hand because you're just so detached from avoiding whatever it is that we needed to say, like to Joan's husband, like, I've got too much on my plate. But we're trying to be, what is that we women always try to be, the server, the helper, we're supposed to take it all on. We're the little quiet warriors. I saw a great picture on Facebook today of a woman running over, like at the beach, running over these boulders, carrying the ironing board, and it's a new Olympic sport. That's exactly right. You know, that we're expected to,
yeah,
up and let it go. And that's how it builds up, because we haven't given ourselves permission to be intentional and mindful of where we're at emotionally and how our needs are not being met.
Yeah, and to take the time to allow ourselves the time. This is why I talk so much about prioritizing ourselves, because if I prioritize myself, then I don't tend to feel the word I'll use, that overwhelm. I don't tend to feel that. I may feel busy. I may be in a time where I know I've got a lot of tasks. Like right now, I'm still catching up on a bunch of business tasks in my coaching business and in my side hustle that I got behind on from my move. Okay.
Right.
Perfectly understandable. I can give myself the grace for that. Right. So when I'm in my right intentional and conscious place, it's just like, yep. I know I still have a big, long to-do list that I'm not quite caught up with. And that's okay. I moved. I'm giving myself love and attention and grace. I'm taking care of the things that most need to be done right now. Like you can navigate all that. I don't describe that as being overwhelmed. When I'm overwhelmed, it's something entirely different. And I know it's because I'm browbeating myself for getting behind, or I'm, whatever, saying yes to other things that I know I shouldn't be saying yes to yet, like whatever. There's always some other drama in the overwhelmed feeling to me, where if I would stay tuned in and prioritize myself, it would shift to just like, oh yeah, I am super busy right now.
Right.
It has a different energy. Does that resonate?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I hope you'll forgive me for laying down, but I'm very comfortable. I needed
Lay
to.
down. Listen.
Yeah.
When we get cocktails and coaching, you get to come in bed in your PJs. It doesn't
excellent.
However you are.
Well, I was going to go back to sleep, but I thought, no, I'd rather go see what Brenda's doing. So, so now one thing I'm kind of struggling with is to actually feel or recognize the feeling of stress, of fear, I guess. Now this week, so I say I'm feeling overwhelmed today. I have all this to do. And when my husband asked me to do one more thing, I was like, I just can't do it. Is that my sister has been diagnosed with cancer for the second time. It's a pretty good prognosis for her, but still we have a scheduled teleconference tomorrow evening with a doctor from Toronto. So it'll be tomorrow evening and we'll get some more information. So this has been going on all week. She had her diagnosis last week. And so I consciously say to myself today, oh, when I'm feeling all this, perhaps it's the underlying stress of worrying about Lisa, but I can't feel that. I say like, I probably am. Like that would make sense, and that would kind of explain that sort of underlying, move my my baseline up a bit so that everything else added up more quickly. Right. Yeah. But I can't quite recognize it, like actually physically or, emotionally feeling it.
So, so I'm going to totally affirm what you're saying. And in fact, add on to that the energy it takes your body and psyche to not be present with the fear or the pain or whatever, the emotions that are would be totally normal with that diagnosis for your sister, adds to the overwhelm, because all that stuff we're unconsciously avoiding. It's not like we really get to avoid it, right? It's still there. And the unconsciousness of it stacks on it, to me. And so, so that's a really beautiful insight. So to give yourself the space to be with that, even though you don't know what it is, like even though you're in the moment of, I don't even know what I feel about this, I can't even access it,
right?
To enter it from there and say, you know what, that's okay. but I'm going to sit here with myself. And I don't know if this is a good idea or a bad idea, but maybe it even happens when you're driving to work. Like, of course, we don't want you falling apart emotionally while you're driving, or being overly distracted. But sometimes the solitude in a car is a really great place to process it, or it is for me. But giving yourself some space to invite it, to say, okay, I'm going to be with myself now intentionally long enough to allow whatever I'm repressing around, what's going on with my sister, Lisa, is that what you said her name is?
Right, yes. Yeah.
With Lisa, to show itself. It's like, if you think of it like it's a scared little kid or a scared animal that's afraid to come in the room. It's afraid to show itself to you. And so, we don't get a kid to come in the room by screaming at it or being like, okay, I have 40 minutes right now, so you get out here,
Right.
It's so much more loving and gentle than that. And maybe it won't come out in those moments, but you've invited it, and now it can start to come out at another point, in the day, or, the next day, or whatever. But if I were to coach you, that's what I would coach you into, is really intentionally giving yourself both some space and the invitation to let that part of you show itself to you, and let it know, just like you would to a little kid, that when it comes out, you're going to be kind and loving and gentle with it. Not like, well, aren't you inconvenient? I don't want to cry at my desk. I don't want to be 5 minutes late, like whatever, because we do that all the time.
Right. Yeah.
I have. So I'm going to give you that space. And maybe it means we wait 5 minutes and go to the bathroom for a few minutes to have a little quick cry or something. But but dealing with it like that, sort of, I do like to think of these things as like a child. Some people are better with pets. I'm better with children, but because do it the way you would do with them. Like, maybe mommy can't come right this second. Sure, there are times that's the case, but I'm coming. Just let me get this hot thing out of my hands, and then I'm going to cut, not this wall of I'm too busy. That's a totally different energy. And the psyche will just shut down and go back into hiding when we do that.
Right.
My super wise therapist that I went to for very many years always said, the psyche reveals itself when it knows it's safe.
Smart.
Yeah. And I've thought about that so many times. And so how do I cultivate an environment that my psyche feels safe to give me this information, or to feel that feeling, or, connect the dots somewhere in things that are going on in my life? Yeah.
I think I can visualize that as my younger self.
Yes. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done a little bit of visualization around that, and I seem to be able to do that. So now I can picture myself and say, it's okay, to a younger version of myself.
Yes.
Because I think I wonder if that's maybe where I shut down a lot of those feelings. Like, and then maybe I'm connecting with that age where that started, maybe.
Sure.
I'm not sure.
Oh, I'm sure of it. I mean, again, a lot of times in a coaching session, when we come up with something like this, or all kinds of different things, I'll ask that question of like, so go back and just remember the first time you remember feeling how you feel now, or in this case, avoiding, not wanting to feel what there is to feel. Like, when do you remember that, and how old were you? And then let's go unpack that story a little bit, because that's got some real jewels in it for you to start to see your own pattern of what causes you to shut down, and why you shut down. And again, instead of coming at it with judgment, what's wrong with me, I'm avoiding, like that kind of bullshit, you come at it with love, because it's this precious little girl. Of course she shut down and kept that to herself,
Right.
And now you can be that. I like to call it my inner loving presence, because sometimes if I go to like an ideal mother, it triggers me because my mother wasn't very ideal a lot of times.
Right.
But that inner loving presence that I wish my mother could have been, to say, oh, honey, it's okay. Like we can, I mean, how many kids don't know how they feel? Most kids, they feel an emotion, but they don't know how to describe it. They don't know how to name it. So that's okay. Help her name it. Help her go through that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's perfect inner child work. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, lovely. Well, you have to, I get it if you don't want to put something in the comments in the Facebook group or something when I put the video up tomorrow of this, but I would love for you to message me or something, and just, whatever, over the next few days, see how you can open this up for yourself and let those feelings come out.
I will definitely work on it, because as I say, I'm recognizing it, as like, I'm not feeling the feeling. I'm just recognizing that it's probably there.
Yes.
So yes, I will definitely work on it.
So that's the invitation. Awesome. I love that. There's no more perfect note to end on than that tonight. So thank you for sharing that. I hope, things go obviously as well as they can go. I know that you guys will at least, you'll be there to support her. And I know that, I don't have to be her to know that means everything, So thank you for being you. Midge, I don't know if you can hear me, but thank you for being here, because you obviously had to step away. But thank you both. And yeah, thanks, Joan, for making the effort and waking up from your nap and being here with us tonight for cocktail.
Nice to see you. Nice to actually have a chat.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great evening. Mwah.
Good night. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.